Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. But last night was a great night for the LSU program. 3 first-round picks, including Jayden Daniels at the top there at number 2 to Washington. To talk about all of it, we bring in our guy, Preston Guy from TigerBait.com on this Friday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, how are you?
Hey, Hunt, certainly was a good night last night for LSU. Got 2 of the top 6 picks, 3 first-round picks. I think it kind of confirms what we all knew about this offense this year. It was an elite talent.
It was incredible to watch, and it was certainly a lot of fun last night. I thought all guys landed, in terms of the number where they went, into a really favorable spot. Look, I was thinking hopefully at some point that the Bears might jump up and grab Jayden, but that became pretty clear about 2 weeks ago that it wasn't going to happen. They take Caleb Williams, and Washington does make the pick there.
Yeah.
Your reaction to that fit now that Dan Snyder's out of the way?
Man, I certainly hope that program can take better care of Jayden than they took care of RG3. I'd be lying if I told you I knew too much about the Washington roster and offense, but I do know Dan Snyder ran a very poorly operated organization, so any owner outside of him should be better, should be an improvement. But he's a thin quarterback and he runs a lot, and his instincts are to not cower away from that hit. So I hope they're investing in an offensive line to keep him protected. That's my biggest gut there. But let me ask this: do you think Brian Thomas will be excited to be reunited with Matt House in Jacksonville?
He's on the proper side of the football. We'll just call it that. We'll talk about Brian Thomas in a second. I was asked. I did a national hit yesterday, and they asked me about Jayden Daniels taking all these hits. And I said, yeah, I mean, a lot of that was Florida State, Ole Miss, like early in the year. I think, based on my memory and eye, that he got better kind of after that. Is that your recollection? I feel like he realizes he can't be trying to hurdle linebackers and stuff anymore.
Yeah, it was bad in 2022 too.
Yeah.
I don't know, like Georgia, he took some pretty big hits. Mostly that is my recollection. But I mean, it's also just the way he chooses to run, and he kind of runs up high. It's a weird way he runs, and he's not a heavy guy. It's just easy to dismantle him if you're a 250-pound linebacker. So I think that part of it was he was deciding to slide better, and he probably did get a little better as the year went on. Certainly weren't as many viral clips of him getting knocked out like there were early in the season. But I think that part of it is just his style of running, that it opens him up to hits. It's not even necessarily how he decides to handle it, if we're being honest.
Do you think how well it translates some, but how well do you think the running part of this thing translates? We know it's got to be one from the pocket, but like how well does the running translate?
Better than it did 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Teams are much more open to running their quarterback around. We've seen the blueprints of wanting mobile guys, even if they're not necessarily runners. They want them to be mobile. I do think that for Jayden to be an elite NFL quarterback, he's going to have to use his feet, because that's part of what makes him elite. I think he'll be good. He'll be okay if he just throws the ball. But we're not talking about a guy who's going out. You didn't draft him as a pocket passer. Got a great deep ball. I understand all that. But, I mean, you have to get his legs involved. He's just too darn good. So I think that, in this modern age of the NFL, I think that teams are much more comfortable than they were back in the day, where they all wanted statues at quarterback who'd never move.
Thought the Giants might trade up to go get a quarterback. They did not. They sat there at 6, and they take Malik Nabers. Your thoughts on that fit with Danny Dimes still slinging the rock there?
Yeah, well, they've got a lot of resources invested in Danny Dimes.
They do?
Kind of similar to a team maybe 50 miles away from Baton Rouge that I'm thinking about. And, they kind of have made the decision that, they're financially tied into this guy. He had one really good year 2 years ago, and this year it wasn't so much, and they're going to try to make it work. They're going to try to give him the tools necessary to be successful. I mean, I like that it's a big market team for Malik. We're going to get to watch him on TV a good bit, hopefully. There is a quote-unquote franchise quarterback in place there, although this is kind of a make-or-break year for him because you have to wonder, if he struggles again this year, or do they just take the loss, cut ties, or whatever, But you could go to a lot worse places than New York, in my opinion. I was not upset about that pick whatsoever for Malik.
Me either. I think it's going to be awesome for him. Brian Thomas, there was some concern about the medical. There's a shoulder issue, potentially could slide towards the very end of the first round. He does get picked up there by Jacksonville to play with Trevor Lawrence. Your thoughts there?
I really like that pick a lot, man. I think Trevor Lawrence is developing into a better and better NFL quarterback. I think he's a guy you're more comfortable in, that he is the franchise guy, going to be around a bit longer. There's weapons on that offense, so he's not going to be isolated in double coverage or anything like that. You got a really good tight end there. You got ATN in the backfield. They did lose Calvin Ridley, so there's an opening to play at receiver, but there's other players there. I think the only downside is the thing I mentioned earlier is we do have a Matt House reunion for Brian Thomas Jr., and I wonder how that's going to go.
We don't have to talk about that. Let's just move on to the next. Do we think the next LSU Tiger off the board is Mason Smith?
According to the draft boards and stuff, that is what I'm seeing. Probably not going to go in the second round, but third. It would either be him or Mekhi Wingo. And I think after them is Jordan Jefferson, who actually did have a strong combine performance. I think he had the most bench reps of any of the defensive tackles. So we're going to see defensive tackle right off the board for LSU. Probably all within. I mean, I think they're all going to be gone by the fourth round.
I realize every organization's different, and that it's a difficult question to answer because of all the variables. But say you're sitting there at the back end of the third round, and I ask you to be a GM for the Bears or the Chargers, whoever. Yeah. Would you take Mason Smith or Mekhi Wingo for your NFL team?
Oh man, you're going with pure potential versus pure production.
Yep.
At a third round pick where you don't have to invest a ton of resources, give me the potential.
Okay.
I'll take Mason Smith, and even though Mekhi Wingo is the better player, and he's more production in college, I think Mason Smith is a guy who suffered greatly from poor coaching at LSU. He was a rotating carousel of coaches, and I think he finally got fed up with it and said, I'm just going to move on and see what I can get. But the size, the strength, all that is there. And I also look at, he never really had a healthy season of conditioning in the off season. And that's one thing I think about, man, if he could lean up a little bit and then get some coaching on his explosiveness, there is first round type measurables and potential with him. And I love that for, a back end of the third round pick, a guy like that, and if it doesn't work out, oh, well, but it's close. I think that's pretty fair to say. I'll say this, you're going to see all three guys go off pretty quickly. You're going to be like, oh, that's why LSU's defensive tackle spot looks the way it does now. But then you're also going to sit there and you're going to say, well, if all these guys are NFL players getting drafted, why was that defensive line not producing at a level last year that anywhere near what it should be with, three drafted defensive tackles on this roster? And I think there's a lot of frustrations LSU fans are going to have, rightfully so.
Well, let's talk about the LSU defensive tackles for next year, specifically visitors coming in and out of the transfer portal. What are you hearing about LSU's chances to add to that room in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I felt really good about Simeon Barrow when he took his visit last weekend, and especially considering when he came to Baton Rouge, he didn't have any other visits planned yet. It really kind of seemed like LSU or bust. Unfortunately, by the time he left, he had a planned visit to go visit Miami, and I'm told he's taking Miami very seriously. So that is a bit of a hindrance as to where we were a week ago. Not saying LSU's in bad shape there, but it did seem like it was LSU's guy to lose. CJ West is a guy who's coming on campus, I think today, actually. He's getting here late today, this afternoon, and he's going to be here all weekend. And then Dominic Williams I'm sorry, Dominic Williams is coming tonight. C.J. West is supposedly coming next week or later. So 3 guys, if you hit on all 3 of those, all of a sudden your defensive tackle spot goes from being a major problem to arguably a strength of your team. We're talking about 3 guys who coaches consider all 3 NFL players. So you would really like to hit, on all 3, at least one. If you don't hit on one of those, it might be time to kind of hit the panic button because you need defensive tackle in a bad way for this LSU team. You're not looking good right now. It's going to be a problem that's going to cost you some wins right now. That being said, it's looking like I believe right now they're down to 82, which gives them 3 spots. I'm expecting to hear 1 or 2 more guys enter their name in the portal is kind of the buzz around. So you'd be talking about getting up to 5 guys, and then you have to wonder, okay, you're not going to take 5 defensive tackles. Are you open to taking a top-notch corner? Are you open to taking a running back because of the Trey Holly situation being up in the air? Maybe even a punter. That's kind of where my mind goes to with this.
Portal season wide open. We'll keep following up with it as developments do happen. Preston, thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the draft this weekend. We'll talk next week. Thanks, man.
All right, Hunt. Take it easy.
Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.